Hey, hi, you guys. It's Saturday at 1 o'clock, and I'm here to read from Guided. All right. I'm Linda Deir, and last Saturday I read to you from chapter 11 of my true life story, Guided. Her spirit guide angels were her best friends and life coaches. I read about unstoppable success. First warning. The veneer of all our successes was beginning to show signs of cracking. Alex started to lose his way, and I got the first warning sign from my guides that real estate was headed for a crash. I got this guidance while real estate was white hot and I was at the top of my game. So, was I going to listen to this most inconvenient guidance? Or was I going to keep doing what got me this far so fast, following my guidance without hesitation? Today, I will be reading to you from chapter 12 of Guided, Second Warning, and I Listen. By the time I started building the 3 showcase homes, change was in the air. It was palatable, but only to me. So many realizations occurred to me in that year. It was made clear to me by my guides that the time had come to sell everything and stop building out into the future before things flip-flopped. They showed me that things that worked before were no longer going to work. It was just the beginning of the warning signs that I would continue to receive from my guides. So sit back, relax, as I tell my story about how, despite the dysfunction, my guides took me on one journey after another that led me to greater understandings of myself. And here we go. Here's Guided. Guided is available on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook format, and I read the book. Chapter 12, Second Warning, and I Listen. By the time I started building the 3 showcase homes, change was in the air. It was palatable, but only to me. So many realizations occurred to me in that year. It was made clear to me by my guides that the time had come to sell everything and stop planning out into the future before things flip-flopped. They showed me that things that worked before were no longer going to work. It was just the beginning of the warning signs that I would continue to receive from them. My guides' timely warnings let me know that I had the time I needed to plan and regroup so I would not be crushed under the impending real estate crash, the end of my marriage, and Cindy's reaction to it all. It was 1976 when I first got their warning. Trusting myself and changing in an instant was what I had mastered in childhood, thanks to my trusted advisors, my guides. That came from seeing things for what they really were and adapting. Colleagues, along with my accountants, bankers, and attorneys, watched me sell everything while the market continued to boom. They all told me I was nuts. They even said that I was creating the crash because of what I was doing, treating me like I was a traitor. But I never let what others thought of me or how they judged me affect my better judgment. That was just another skill I had perfected as a kid. I was used to doing unconventional things based on trusting and knowing myself and my guides. To say that I was operating out of the box is an understatement. There was nothing I could do or say to convince anyone about what was coming. Again, I found myself in an experience like the merry-go-round illustrated. They could not be reached. At the same time, the media discovered me, a young, successful businesswoman designing and building homes in the Sacramento area. I was 24 years old and not looking for attention. I really had no time for it. I had my hands full with completing my projects and handling my part of our framing business, not to mention a husband who was falling apart. I had always had a lot of energy, and even that wasn't enough to continue doing all the things I did. I was overextended in every way, except financially. Learning, when your guides warn you of an impending danger or change, you need to listen and take action. When they warn you repeatedly, you really need to listen and take action. We were in the 5th year of our building businesses. I began to see that the success we gained changed us both. We no longer had time for each other except when it came to business. I managed to take Cindy on trips to get her into sports. Any spare time I had, I spent with her. Alex was becoming cranky and unpredictable. Once we moved into the showcase home I had built, living with him became even more difficult. I really didn't understand what was wrong with him and why he was becoming so angry. My way of dealing with it was to steer clear of him as much as possible. As a result, there was no family life in the new family home. Alex loved the new home, but had lost his connection to his family. The end of our marriage was coming, just like my guides had told me it would 5 years earlier. Not long after moving into our new home, one of Alex's carpenters came to me and hit me with a startling revelation. Apparently, not only was Alex unfaithful to me, he had a long string of girlfriends. He said that Alex hardly ever showed up on the job site anymore. Alex was treating his carpenters badly, and they saw him losing touch with reality. They resented him, and they wanted to see him fail. The warnings from my guides that had started coming about a year earlier were now beginning to reveal themselves on all fronts. It was like dominoes falling. I had already stopped buying land and building new homes. I was now a year into building out and completing my subdivisions, 5 custom homes and 2 other custom homes, along with selling my rental properties. No one in my circle saw what was coming. When they asked me why I was pulling back, all I could tell them was the same thing I told them before. I saw real estate coming to a crash. I was 25 years old, and I was really alone in this. I couldn't believe people were so blind to reality. Though no one else agreed with me, I knew my guides had it right. In 1977, I went to my first National Association of Home Builders convention for the Sacramento area. I found it to be a collection of the most arrogant older men I could have ever imagined. I never made time to go to these events because I was too busy. Even so, they knew who I was. Although I was incredibly successful, they treated me like their secretary. They smiled at me and laughed at me and blew me off. I was of no consequence to them, as they had underestimated me like so many others before. What I was hearing them talk about made me laugh. They believed that their successes were all because of them. I jumped in at one point and asked them if they really believed that. They said they absolutely did. I laughed out loud, partly because they refused to see what was happening and that it was about to wipe them all out. There was no reaching these egomaniacs. It was not us who had created the real estate boom. All it took was being at the right place at the right time. Going to this event only reinforced what I knew, that this coming real estate correction was overdue, and I suspected it would be much bigger than a real estate correction. Lesson. This is a perfect example of people taking total credit for the guidance that put them in the right place at the right time in the first place. Other self-help authors have referred to this as the ego, easing God out. Ego is self-serving and it weighs you down with your own self-importance. Nothing ever stays the same, and people's egos will eventually crush them because the ego does not like change. Cindy was in the 3rd grade at the Waldorf school. She had attended since kindergarten. It was not working out for her. Neither the teachers nor I could figure out why, under these stress-free conditions, that she wouldn't apply herself. She was not self-motivated, her grades were suffering, and she was really falling behind academically. Cindy told me she wanted to be like the regular kids and go to the public school. I was really surprised to hear that. I was obviously overprotecting her because her performance meant she probably wouldn't be placed into her grade level at the public school. I enrolled her into another private school designed to catch her up. The plan was that by spending her 4th grade year in this catch-up school, she would be able to enter the public school system at her grade level. Her 4th grade year was very stressful for her, but because she chose to go to the public school, she was willing to do it this way instead of being embarrassed later when she couldn't keep up. Happily, the transition into the 5th grade at the public school went smoothly. Learning. Everything that happens in your life happens for you and not to you. The decision that people make usually have nothing to do with you. They are just living their lives the best way they can. It will all work out for you if you don't take it personally. Your guides see what's really going on, so ask them for help when you need it. They will keep you on track. The momentum of the real estate boom in the 1970s is what allowed me to get out clean. No one thought it would end, and no one wanted it to. They weren't willing to see the signs right in front of them. Not only was I selling every real estate investment I had, I was planning a divorce and a property settlement. Winding down and severing ties with Alex took all the energy I could conjure up, because at this point, I was really tired. All the years of building up what we had was coming to a close. This was the conclusion that my guides had shown me in 1971 when I was 19 years old. When they told me my marriage would come to an end, and by then I would be able to make it on my own. It took 7 years to come full circle, 1971 through 1978. But come to pass, it certainly did. Tip. Many times your guides show you the beginning and the conclusions of an event at the same time, or in reverse order. That's because there's no time where they are. So when things happen, it isn't linear for them. Your job is not to overthink it or inject too much analysis into it so you cancel out what they came through with by second guessing the direction that you are being guided to move into. Consider this to be a new language that you need to learn. Open your mind to it. Don't close it. Bringing things to a conclusion exposed the totality of what had been building under the surface for years. I remember driving down to Sacramento to get a final building permit when I saw a homeless man wasting away on a park bench, and I just broke down crying. In that moment, I knew my guides were showing me the path that Alex was destined for. I also knew that staying married to him was not the answer. It was shocking and unexpected. In that instant, they also showed me that Alex didn't cheat on me. He cheated on himself. Suddenly, I was no longer hurt by his infidelity because once again, I was seeing it for what it was. That insight stopped me from taking it personally. Thanks again to my guides. Around that time, Cindy came home from school one day saying that almost all her friends' parents were getting divorced. She was bragging that she was practically the only one whose parents were still together. She thought it was funny. After just 1 year in the new public school environment, Cindy not only adapted, she thrived. She liked the politics and head games that went on. She was a bully and played out her games of manipulation on everyone she could. She fit right in. She was the exact opposite of me. She had become the very thing I tried so desperately to shield her from. She was out of touch and ego-driven. In that moment, I sat her down and informed her that her dad and I were getting divorced. That was a sobering moment for her. Cindy was 9 years old, and she had pretty much had everything she ever wanted, except that her dad was never good at being a dad. He never took the time with her growing up, and he was pretty immature. In light of this, I asked her why she was so upset when we were getting divorced, because she was never close to her dad. She couldn't answer me. In that moment, I told Cindy that she should consider becoming an actress. I told her that if she didn't direct her natural tendency to manipulate and create drama in her life into another direction, it would turn on her in negative ways later on. She was surprised to hear that. It was a sweet and sour moment of truth. It addressed her negative tendencies and showed her how to direct them in a positive way. I knew I couldn't change her, only show her a path that would support her and prevent her from falling into a life of self-created torment. I wondered if she would turn out to be one of those people who couldn't be reached. Tip: being a parent doesn't mean you own your kids. They come in the way they are. It's really that simple. You can try to give them direction, but it's their life to do what they want. If they turn out to be someone you're proud of, you can't take credit for it. If they turn out to be someone who disappoints you, you can't take the blame either. They don't come from you, they come through you. After letting Cindy know my plans, I began to consider the changes I would be going through. I was going to need to become more than just a businesswoman. I needed to learn personal social skills. I had gotten married at 16, had a baby, became a skilled businesswoman, and built our businesses. But I had no idea what it was like to have friends or go out on a date. I had no reference for what was supposed to happen when you agree to go to dinner and a movie with someone. I was 26 years old and only just discovered how uncomfortable I was in personal social settings. The support I got came directly from my guides. Their intuitive messages showed me what to do and when to do it. In hindsight, I might have made a good undercover agent or something like that. I could keep secrets and had a well-developed line of communication with my guides who provided me with timely insights. I never let anyone too close, and because of my guides, I had a great sense of timing. My guides always showed me when to take action and when to retreat. But socially, I had a lot to learn, and that made me very uncomfortable. Until now, my work had served me well. I used it as a total outlet, completely bypassing the need for personal social interaction. Work was my safe haven. The divorce and the change in the economy had placed a spotlight on this deficiency, and it was embarrassing. The changes happening for Alex really surprised him too. In his mind, his girlfriends weren't acting right. He couldn't understand what was wrong with them because they were his girlfriends and they shouldn't be out looking at other men and going out with them. This was his reaction and something he wasn't used to dealing with. They reminded him of his alcoholic mother who slept with anyone and everyone. Alex ended up beating up every girlfriend he had. None of that type of behavior had gone on in our marriage because I was the opposite of those girls. He assumed that everyone would be like me. What he didn't realize was that I knew his hot buttons and deliberately steered clear of setting him off. I mastered this when I was growing up, thanks to my guides and my mom. Alex never had a long-term relationship again. Because I wasn't distracted with personal relationships, I had valuable quiet time to detect the subtle messages that came from my most trusted advisors, my guides. They had always pointed me in the right direction at just the right time, making my life spectacular. They skillfully guided me through the successes while steering me clear of the dangers. They walked with me as I experimented and learned. It felt like I was cheating because I got to do what I wanted, the way I wanted, with them by my side. Everyone else complained and struggled, but I didn't have to. However, I could feel I was about to go into an entirely new direction. My guides were making it clear that the home building business would be a shadow of what it used to be, at least for me. I became aware that I had gotten what I needed from that. To my amazement, viewing it in retrospect, the experience included solving my anger issues, something I completely didn't see while I was going through it. This is how brilliant your guides work to bring you into wholeness. I only saw it when I was on the other side of it. You can't see it when you're in it, you guys. It was like finishing a book. Suddenly, that part of my life was over. It was more of a success than I realized. However, part of me wished I could go back to prepare better because I had no other skills, or at least none that I could identify at the time. I became very concerned about how I would go forward from there, but it was crystal clear that I could never go back. Tip: when you experience so much success, it's a good thing until you get a message from your guides, as I did, that it's time to change. How will you do that? What you do is let go and move into the new directions. What you do is you let go and move into new directions that interest you, your natural guidance. Who knows how different my life would have been had I just done that that at that exact moment. Again, as I said earlier, change is only difficult when you have focused on what you might be giving up, what you might be losing out on. The greater and longer the successes were, the harder it is to let go and step into change. I was trying to see what was coming after real estate, but nothing was showing up. I'd always been able to see what was next, but this time I felt like I was in the ocean without a paddle. I started to realize what other people must feel like most of the time without the support from trusted advisors like I always had. It was very humbling, but I knew there was a reason I wasn't getting any guidance on the matter. So I just shrugged my shoulders and got moving on with my life. I felt tired, but I couldn't let anyone know because I wasn't quite through it all yet. As much as I wanted this to be over, I needed to stay more focused than ever to bring everything to completion. Okay. Next Saturday, July 18th at 1 p.m. Pacific Time, I will read to you from Chapter 13 of Guided, Everyone's Reaction to Change. It turned out that my many achievements made Alex feel inadequate. He always told me that he was envious of my high energy. It turns out that he was serious about that, and his solution to getting more energy was to take cocaine. While I was going through the divorce, my mother told me how I had made my dad feel inadequate. I was shocked to hear that. Dad was always my hero. Why would he ever feel like that? According to Mom and just about everyone else, I made everything look so easy. She said I made more money in 1 year than Dad did in his best 5. All this was just an echo for me, hearing this time and time again in one form or another. How did I do all this on my own? I didn't. I had help along the way. I knew I was being guided. I was having fun doing it. I was successful doing it, and that's what made it all look so easy. Until then, remember, you have help. You are never alone. And always being guided.